Hello, welcome to Gunpowder Fiction and Plot. I'm Scott.
I'm Nelle.
And today we're going to do our TBR for the month of June.
Yeah.
Now we're going to do something a bit different with our TBRs because...
I'm lazy.
You're lazy. We're going to do two things differently because firstly, the having a TBR and actually trying to read it thing, yeah, like, who reads their TBR?
All of it.
All of it.
I frequently get distracted.
Well, what I want is I like more books than I can read, so I've got like a list of options.
Yeah, so you can like combine mood reading with planning and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Also, Nell didn't want to pick her TBR this month.
Because I'm lazy. No, it's not really, but...
What we're going to do is I'm picking Nell's TBR this month, and then next month, Nell's going to pick my TBR.
Yeah, so Scott's doing all the TBRs.
All of them. So really, you can just leave, you don't need to know.
I want to know what I'm reading.
Yeah,
What am I reading?
The other thing is Nell doesn't know what she's reading.
Yeah, so let's see how good a job Scott did, or if he picked a bunch of books that I'm dreading.
But before your TBR, you actually said there are some books that are on your TBR regardless of what I picked.
Yeah, things that have to go on my TBR regardless. We've got a book club, and our book club book for June is A Dictionary of Lost Words.
By Pip Williams.
So that has to be on my TBR. And then I've got my All the Outwards project, so I'm reading The Heart Goes Last as my novel, and I've got my first graphic novel from Margaret Atwood, Volume 1 of Catbird.
So the Dictionary of Lost Words on both our TBRs, because obviously we're both in the same book club, and that is the story of a girl who steals words out of the Oxford English Dictionary. It's by an Australian author, and it just seems a bit interesting actually, but it's a bit different.
Yes, it sounds very interesting, a bit feminist, and right up my alley, to be honest.
So you asked me to come up with 5 books for your TBR, and what I've done is I'm leaving you with some choice here, so in case I got them wrong, I'm giving you 10 books for your TBR.
That's good.
Right, so you got some choice.
Yeah, cool.
Right, and I'm going to start with, they're just piled in an order, there is no logic here.
Okay.
Okay, I've got Thomas Hardy, Far From the Manning Crowd.
Not shocked.
Not shocked. You started reading Jude the Obscure, and you put it down because you couldn't deal with it.
I think at that time my reading, I'm going to call it my reading fitness. That's what I'm going to refer to it as now. I think it was in a pit. I was trying to get back into reading again, and starting with like a depressing classic is probably not the most intelligent thing I did.
You're starting reading then, you're reading that because I loved that book, and I was like, you should read it. And so you did. But if I
got so stuck, it was just, I wasn't ready.
And if I was recommending a Hardy book to start on, Jude the Obscure would not be the Hardy book. Far From the Manning Crowd would be the Hardy book. And Far From the Manning Crowd has Bathsheba Everdeen in it, and she's a strong lead. She is probably my favourite Hardy woman, with the possible exception of Eustacia Vi. And it's a cool little tale. It's the least depressing of the Hardy books, which
sounds like it's against the point, but
no, it's still a slit your wrist Hardy book. But
it's 429 pages. They look pretty dense. The text is, I don't know, can you see? The text is quite small. So this is
I think this is the longest book on your TBR, because you asked for some short ones so you can catch up on your Goodread goal, because you're not very far behind.
No, I'd like to catch
you want
it.
to catch up. But anyway, I've got that one there. I think it's a good book. It's probably the second best-selling Hardy book of all time after Tess.
I'm not super surprised. I think I've built up a bit of reading fitness this month. I'm in a much better habit, which I'll get into when we do our wrap-up, but I'm in a much better habit of like reading daily, and I think that will do better for classics like this. But let's see what else I've got.
All right. Now, the next one, this is a book you've got. It's The Elegance of the Hedgehog.
Yes! I'm so excited you picked this.
I read this in February, and you've been obsessed with hedgehogs whenever I mentioned it. It's a cool story.
They're not elegant. I think that's really what it comes down to. They're adorable, but I don't think anyone has ever called a hedgehog elegant. And
you're going to be really depressed when there's not actually a hedgehog in this novel.
So it's 320 pages, and I'm excited about this one.
Good.
I have no idea. It's got Paris on the cover.
Put them down. I think I've put all the thick ones on the top, actually. Put them down, because I'm going to give you a third book now.
Okay.
Right. This is one of my all-time favourite books. It's A Confederacy of Dunces. I have picked this because it's a dark comedy. It's about why the world is shit and full of idiots. How are you not going to love that book?
Well, I hear what you're saying. It smells really good.
It's an old book. It's
feels really soft. I want to read this just because it's like the tactile feeling I'm getting. This has been high on my list of wanting to read for quite some time because it comes so highly recommended from you. And
it is without doubt the funniest book I've ever read.
The funniest book he's ever read.
It is the funniest book, and it is brainy as well.
I'm looking forward to that.
All right. The next book I have is The Jungle by Upton Sinclair.
Oh, it's skinny.
It is skinny, but it's very dense for its...
And the paper type changes. It's really weird.
Yeah, it's another oldie that we've got. This is a book that could have been written by somebody like Orwell. Not that...
Less elephant killy, yeah.
No,
okay.
yeah, I know. We've but it's that sort of political style novel, and it's very good. It's about immigrants and the meat industry and exploitation.
Ooh, interesting.
So...
Yes, I'm into that.
Okay.
You're doing well so far.
I'm doing well. Well, then you've asked...
Mind you, none of these books would have made it onto my TBR.
Really?
Oh, except maybe The Hedgehog, if I had chosen it myself.
Well, you've asked for a short book, and the next one I've picked is Truman
Jamie!
Capote, Breakfast at Tiffany's. This is nice and short. You liked that true crime one he's gone...
In Cold Blood, I really did.
Blood.
And I do like the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's. I suspect that this has got a bit more to it, but
This is nothing like In Cold Blood, and I'm pretty sure if you've watched the movie of this, you know that. But if you like Truman Capote's writing, then you probably like...
yeah, he's very easy to consume, and this is a shorty, so even if I don't like it, I mean, what is it, 100 and something pages?
Yeah, you'll finish this in an afternoon. It's
157.
And it's large print.
It's nice.
It'll take you 2.5 hours, and you'll finish that. You know, you won't even need to get a second cup of tea.
Who drinks tea? Who are you talking to?
Coffee. This book was, at some point in my reading history, my favourite book ever read, and it's a shorty. It is Candide by Voltaire.
I suspect you bought me this.
I suspect I bought you this as well. I absolutely love Voltaire. I love everything about Voltaire. He's funny, he's political, he's a smartass. And this is his foray into literature. You know, he was a political figure. He mocked everybody. And he wrote this I think he wrote this in 3 days.
Savage. Satiric.
He is the master of satire. I read this, and then I immediately read Oscar Wilde, The Portrait of Dorian Gray, and I have to say that Oscar Wilde was flat after Voltaire because Voltaire did it better.
Voltaire's quite funny though. Like he's got a lot of one-liners.
All of his quotes are very good.
Yeah.
And there's a few words that exist because of Candide, Panglossian meaning optimistic. It comes directly from Candide.
Such a nerd.
Such a nerd. Okay, this is another short one, and I know you're interested in reading this. I don't know whether this would have made it onto your TBR, but it would have got close. It is Che Guevara, The Motorcycle Diaries.
Yeah, I don't think it would have, but I know someone who'll be happy if I read this.
Yes. I got this because you want to read a few more countries, authors from a few more countries that you haven't read. You've not read a Cuban author?
No.
Before? I'm not sure. Did Che Guevara actually, is he the author of this?
Yeah, it's his diary.
Yeah, so
literally his diary.
Political figure Che Guevara went on a motorcycle journey in the 50s, in the road trips.
I hear it's a bit dude bro, and I'm supposed to watch out for homophobia, but, you know...
It sounds very much like that documentary with Ewan McGregor and Charlie Borman.
Oh, which we loved.
Yeah.
that was good.
So,
Except with a communist.
I wonder if Ewan McGregor is a communist.
Ewan McGregor, if you're watching.
Are you a commie?
Please.
Yeah. Alright. This is one that is just a safe one for Nell to like. It is Rebecca by Daphne Jamari.
Again, I would never have picked this, but I'm glad you did. That's good. This, the way you describe this, sounds amazing, but I feel like you had a unique experience because you were not anticipating the kind of book that it is.
So Daphne Jamari has been made into a lot of movies by Hitchcock, and I started reading it and I'm like, did I pick up a book by Jane Austen? Like, that's what it felt like to me.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like half of those two things combined.
Well, that sounds really good. I would not be upset if an Austen book randomly turned into like
Hitchcock.
creepy horror.
And then Elizabeth Bennet stabbed Darcy in the side of the neck with a very pointy hair pin. And Darcy was sorry for being an arsehole in the first half of the book.
And then he was dead.
Okay, we got two more to go now.
Bring 'em on.
I've got The Sin Eater.
Yes.
Megan Campasi.
A
This
little pomegranate on the front.
sounds interesting. It's like a historical fiction cross light fantasy. Look, the back of it says The Handmaid's Tale meets Alice in Wonderland. And
Who's not in for that?
yeah, I mean,
This might be first.
large
so far.
text, short. I think this is a good one for you to burn
A
through
dark
as well.
and thrilling page turner from Emma Donoghue. That is a good person.
The last one on your TBR now
It's
is
huge. Oh, it's this one.
it's the ballad, the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which is the new Hunger Games book, the prequel.
I definitely think that this is going to end up on my stuff I'll probably read anyway, regardless of what Scott says, just because everyone is reading it right now and I'm a little bit of a FOMO about it.
I thought
But
that.
it's so much bigger than I thought it was going to be.
Look at the text. Look at it.
No, I really thought it was going to be like a third of that size.
Look at it. You can't
No, it's massive.
burn through that.
It's huge.
It's huge. So
It's definitely a big print, but
we'll go through this later on when you do a wrap. But how do you think I've done with these 10 books?
the first question is how many of them I actually read, and then the second is whether I like them or not. I definitely think that I'm leaning towards more modern writing at the moment.
So Candide and Hardy and Upton Sinclair will probably miss out from this group.
Well, not necessarily. I think you've just sort of pushed me back in a direction that I haven't been reading from, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think,
Thing that you wished I had have picked that's on your TBR.
so many things. But the whole point was I was having difficulty choosing from so many things. I've definitely got some African authors on the shelf that I want to prioritise before I get bogged down in another readathon session. But there are other months.
There are other months. But I must confess that I picked about 20 books for you, and I even put this book on my TBR.
You but.
And I took The Half Yellow Sun and Homecoming for them both on your TBR. And then I took them off as I was narrowing them down.
Yeah.
And there was quite a few that I took off for that reason.
And the other one is the book that the Asian readathon book that I probably won't get to this month. I probably would have put that on if I picked my own TBR. But
Yeah.
it's all good.
All right. So I don't have a pile of books. I have a list.
Ooh.
All right. So my TBR. The first one on my TBR is The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan. The reason this is Tan. I don't know. That was me doing something dumb there. I might actually get to that. We're filming the TBR before the month ends. I might actually get to that in
this month.
in May. It's the book where I'm looking at what I read at, what my rate is, and what I'm going to get through. And it's a book that I will go to if I get through everything.
Yeah.
And I probably will start this book in May and finish it in June.
Yeah.
But I might.
We'll see how you go.
We'll see how we go. The next one is, it is, I think in the US it's Pride Month, so I thought I would find an LGBT, a queer lit book that I wanted to read.
Yeah.
And I've picked Fingersmith by Sarah Waters. I don't care whether this is queer lit or not, this just sounds like an awesome novel. Like, it's highly recommended, and the fact that it's got queer representation in it is a bonus. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it just sounds excellent, and everybody highly recommends it. I always like to read some classics and sort of improve how well read I am as well. And so I'm going to read a bit more Samuel.
I feel like that's a whole discussion that we have to have.
That I like to do that?
No, that you like value classics more as far as evaluating how well read you are. Like, you get double points if it's old.
I get double points if it has literary merit. But, yeah.
Anyway,
that's
a whole video.
That's another video too. Anyway, I think anybody who has read Samuel Beckett will say that he does have literary merit in quite a lot of it. And I've only read Waiting for Godot, and I've put the trilogy on my TBR. So the trilogy is our trilogy, which you might guess, but it's the only trilogy called The Trilogy.
Okay.
It is Malloy, Malone Dies, and The Unnameable. And I'm looking forward to this. It's about death superficially, and underneath it's about life. So, I mean, I should just reiterate that this is a list of possibilities and not the whole thing, because this is going to be a long TBR. Now, you've issued a challenge to read all the Atwoods in the year, and you've asked people to join you if they would like.
And you're required to because you're my husband.
Yeah, I kind of have to, and I put one Atwood on my TBR last month, and look, spoiler for the wrap, I didn't get to it. And I haven't read as many Atwoods as you, and you're reading 2 a month, so...
Yeah, but I'm only reading one novel a month. The rest is short fiction.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I've put 3 Atwood novels on my TBR. I read Oryx and Crake earlier.
What a fun month.
3 Atwoods?
Yeah.
Yeah, wait till you hear what the 3 are as well.
The rest of the trilogy.
Obviously, I read Oryx and Crake earlier in the year. I have not done the other 2 in the Mad Adams trilogy, so The Year of the Flood and Mad Adams is there. And then I'm going to couple that with The Blind Assassin.
Oh, I love The Blind Assassin. It's so tricksy.
It's so tricksy.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward. Atwood, I hear Atwood has slightly different styles for all of her books. So,
and like, even just having gone through the synopsises or synopsi, whatever, the many stories that I went through when I decided which order to read them in, they're all so different. Like, there's no repeat of The Handmaid's Tale or even anything remotely that you would put in the same genre. Like, it's all so different.
This might be like a question you ask people when you're getting to know them. What's your favourite Atwood book? You know?
Yeah, but everyone's going to say The Handmaid's Tale because they're all TV junkies. Well, I guess that tells you something about them, doesn't it?
Or it might be the only one that they've read. It's probably if you only read one.
Yeah.
Anyway, the next on my list is A Dictionary of Lost Words, which is our book club book. Yeah. Then I've got Jill the Reckless by P.G. Wodehouse on my list. I haven't read a Wodehouse book in ages. I really like Wodehouse. I don't know why he fell out of favour. I'm aware that he's fallen out of favour with me. So I'm going to read a Wodehouse book because there's no reason why...
You're not reading him.
I'm not reading him. And I love him. He's funny. He's silly. He's whimsical. Then I was meant to read... This is a list of things that I didn't read in May.
This is what worries me with TBR videos, is especially if you do what we have a tendency to do in making a longer list than you consume, is that it just sort of recycles and it becomes the same content every month.
Oh,
so if you get bored with our TBR videos, I'm sorry.
Stop putting that Atwood book on your TBR.
Just read it.
That's it. Anyway, I did not read my Wheel of Time book. I want to finish the Wheel of Time series this year. I don't want to be the only thing I'm reading. So I've got 2 down on there, which is a problem because they're 2 thick ones, which are The Lord of Chaos and A Crown of Swords. So we'll see if I can catch up on my schedule. Then I've got another comedy down, Lucky Jim by Kingsley Amis. That's an older comedy, which again sounds like it's quite good. I haven't read a Hardy since January. I put down Under the Greenwood Tree as something that I'd like to read from Thomas Hardy. I just like Hardy. I really like this as a name for a book. I know nothing about this book other than the name, but the Guernsey Literature and Potato Peeling Society sounds like it could be good.
Guernsey?
Oh, Guernsey. Sorry, Guernsey, not Jersey.
It's weird.
They're 2 islands in the Channel Islands.
Yeah.
I swapped the names.
That's also weird.
But I get them confused.
No, that you went to the geographical reference.
That's not weird for me.
No, just makes you a weird person.
It does. Where was I on my list?
Guernsey.
Then I have the oldest 3 books on my TBR. This is the oldest 1 and 2 that I don't have a date down, so probably older. El Dorado by Baroness Orczy. That is the sequel to The Scarlet Pimpernel. The Adventures of Roderick Random by Tobias Smollett.
Which sounds like a porno.
Doesn't it? I believe it's a kid's story a la Robbie Lewis-Stevenson.
Okay, cool.
But you were close. It's an adventure novel. I think it's aimed at kids. It's referenced in a Dickens novel. I think it's referenced in...
Sorry.
I'm exciting, clearly. I think it's referenced in David Copperfield, but I...
Fell asleep during that one because it was boring.
I quite liked it, actually.
David Copperfield.
Yeah.
It's like the Dickens book that made me just give up on life.
I enjoyed...
Definitely on Dickens.
I enjoyed Traddles in it. I enjoyed Traddles in that book, his friend.
No.
No. Anyway, each their own. It's actually called Homegoing by Yagasari. I have to read, or I don't have to read anything, but I want to read an author from a different country every year, a country that I've not...
Every month?
Every month. I want to have more countries that I have read a book from. Yagasari, I don't know how to say her name. Gayasi is half American, half Ghanese, so obviously I've not read an American author before. Then I've got a few more. I've got Bel Canto by Anne Patchett. It's a book about music. Don't know much about that at all. The Secret Adversary by Agatha Christie. It's the first Tommy and Tuppence book. So I've done the first Pyro, the first Marple, and now I'm doing her last series of detectives. Helen Keller, The Story of My Life. That was on my TBR a few months ago and I didn't get to it. And I just get rid of that. And lastly, Michael Chabon's The Story of Cavalier and Clay, which I know nothing about. So that's my rather long TBR.
That was a lot of books.
That's a lot of books. Well, I think I'll get through about half of them.
And that's good, because otherwise the wrap at the end of June is going to be heavy.
Welcome to our 3-hour wrap. I have a contagious
we
disease
talk until you
where
fall
I can't
asleep.
stop reading. Well, yeah, what are you reading during July, June, whatever month it is next?
And if you want Scott to pick your TBR, or even just some of your TBR, take a photo of your bookshelf and tag us on Instagram and tell us how many books you want him to pick for you. And Scott will pick your TBR like he did my TBR. And we can all read what Scott says this month, because that seems funny to me.
Yeah, white male privilege.
Or...
Sorry.
You're just no fun. You
no
ruin
fun.
all the things with your white male privilege.
I do. I'm sorry. I can't help it. Anyway, that's the end of our video, isn't it? Remember, ideas are powerful. They're more powerful than white male privilege. Nope.
I wish they were. That would be awesome. And don't forget to subscribe to our videos because we're awesome. And like this one and ring the bell and all the things. But most of all, comment and tell us what you think of what you're going to read and what you're excited about and all those things.
We love comments.
Bye.